How do we know what voltage is correct? I'm sure a lot of us ask ourselves this question, especially when we're just starting out. When it comes to knowing what voltage is right for us, there is not one definitive answer. It is definitely going to vary from person to person, and I'm going to explain why throughout this video. Should you have any questions at all, I encourage you, drop a comment down below. I'll do my absolute best to assist in the best possible direction. If you find this video helpful and enjoy this content, consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel, as I'll be bringing more videos like this for you. With that being said, let's get right on into this. Selecting the right voltage range is going to vary from artist to artist. Everyone has a different hand motion, everyone has a different style that they're going for, everyone has a different technique, technical application, everyone has a different skill set. And that's just one side of the story. There's another side. What about our gear? With our gear, everyone has different preferences. Some people prefer shorter strokes while others prefer longer strokes. And believe it or not, when it comes to selecting the optimal voltage, all of these variables and more do come into play. I go in depth and talk about these variables within my tattoo book that I wrote right here called the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook, which is now available on my Amazon author page and on my Barnes & Noble's author page. You can head on over to Amazon.com or BarnesandNobles.com, type in Daniel Yuck or the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook, and you'll see this book pop right on up, which is loaded with tattoo information and delivered to you in an easy to understand illustrative manner that's fun and memorable, which will make your learning experience much more easier. So within here, I do talk about voltages. I do get down to the bare bone essentials as to what we should be considering when it comes to selecting the right voltage that's best for us. I'll go ahead and touch base on some essential variables here in this video, but if you want to learn more, I recommend checking this book out. Once again, the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook, it is now available on my Amazon author page and BarnesandNobles.com. A couple of main variables that come to mind when it comes to selecting the right voltage is the style of tattoo that I am going to be doing. Not only the style of tattoo that I'm going to be doing, the gear that I will be using. So it's kind of in that order. I'm always considerate of the style of tattoo that I will be doing. Is it mandala? Is it more of a realistic style tattoo? Does it require different varying line weights? Does it require nothing but shading? These are questions that I answer almost immediately whenever I see a tattoo design. For this design right here, I already know that I'm going to be using I'm going to use like a 14 round shader for this area, and I'm probably going to use mostly round liners for these areas right here. And then I know for a fact I'll use a 3 round liner to add the dot work in all of these areas, maybe even like a small 5 round liner for these inner lines right here that aren't showing up. But you get the idea. So I am already thinking in correspondence to the design at hand. For me personally, since I'm going to be doing a lot of lining, I want a machine that has a harder hitting stroke, which is going to be a higher stroke. So for example, I am using this Muso Toku Mercury M1 tattoo machine, which is a 4.2 millimeter stroke. It is a harder hitting machine. This is my favorite tattoo machine so far. You can see right here, I'm using real skin, fake skin. This mandala, as I mentioned, has multiple line weights. All of these variables that I'm paying attention to are going to contribute to the voltage that I select. Here is how. Considering that I have a machine of a 4.2 millimeter stroke, and then considering that I typically line at around 6.5 volts, I am going to have to move at a certain pace. Now, for me personally, I am going to be lining with a, as you can see, 14 round shader. This is a range standard 14 round shader. From this needle right here, this is more on the heavier side of a needle grouping. So what I'm gonna have to do is accommodate for that. I have a couple of options. I could either higher my voltage and move faster, or I could stay at 6.5 volts and I could move slower to allow my needle enough time to make its rounds, to allow my needle to deposit the ink in a clean, solid, consistent, saturated manner. And again, I do talk about this in depth within my Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. So here's where these variables tie into voltage. If I know that I'm going to be using varying line weights, then that means I'm probably going to dominantly be lining for the majority of this tattoo. For me, since I'm using a 4.2 millimeter stroke, sitting at around 6.5 volts seems like the sweet spot. However, that's typically going to be varying from maybe around 6 to 7 volts, 7.5. If I use a softer hitting machine, let's say if I'm not using a 4.2 but a 3.5 millimeter stroke, then I will probably take my voltage up to around 7.5 to compensate for the shorter stroke. So what that means is I'll take up my voltage, so that way my needle has more time to make rounds, which is going to deposit the ink in a clean, solid, consistent, saturated manner. Let's demonstrate with this line right here. So I'm going to be running at 6.5 volts, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how I would approach it and why all of these little choices matter. So when we start thinking about the workflow and when we align all of these fundamentals to match our skill set, our preference, design, and the way that we tattoo, then we're going to start yielding better results. And I feel like when we first start out, knowing what voltage to select is probably one of the hardest things that we can do. So when I am tattooing, 6.5 volts sounds and feels great. I'm paying attention to the sound. And then from here, I'm gonna let my needles deposit the ink, catch into the skin, so that way I'm yielding clean, solid, consistent results. You can see that I have my angle correct. My needle's making enough rounds before I move on to the next area, so that way it's solid and saturated. Taper out at the end. Allow me to dab here, get a generous amount of ointment so we can see the true results and exactly what we are working with. That's right there is definitive proof for me that paying attention to the voltage is very, very important. Keep in mind, this is fake skin and I feel like this was cleanly applied with minimal damage. However, why it's important to know what to listen for and feel for when it comes to selecting our voltage is so that way we can do just that and not the opposite, which is be very rough with it and to basically just traumatize the skin. And we hear that word a lot within the tattoo world, traumatizing the skin. The way that we go around traumatizing the skin is being very comfortable and familiar with the choices that we are making and knowing why we're making them. The reason why this voltage is correct for me, which is 6.5, is because I'm using a machine that has a naturally harder hit, which is this Muso Toku Mercury M1 4.2 millimeter stroke. I also feel comfortable moving at 6.5 volts. I've aligned my workflow for that. I don't have to move too fast and I'm not moving too slow. I typically find, let's say if I start hiring my voltage up, let's say we go to 7.5, I sometimes get spitting of the ink, not with this machine right now, but that can happen depending on what machine we use. But now I'm also obligated to move more quickly because I don't want to traumatize the skin. So from here, if I were to do the lining at 7.5, but moving at a 6.5 voltage speed, that's where I'm going to get that textured healing, raised skin, potential scarring, more trauma to the skin. What I have to do is I have to move quicker to compensate for the amount of rounds that my needle is now making. Now, this may be okay for some, but for me, it's not about going fast, it's about being correct. So if I am going to be speeding up my workflow, that's going to make me more prone to wobbly lines and errors, which they will happen. So for me, that's why I choose to go down to 6.5. You can hear the difference. This allows me to move a little bit slower, which gives me more control over the area that I'm depositing. So let's say if that area came out rough, I can go back over it and stay within the bounds that I just deposited, but move a bit slower. This is also going to minimize risk throughout the entire, this is going to minimize mistakes that I would have made throughout the entire tattoo. So that right there is the reasoning why I choose to have a lower voltage. It does not mean that I'm going to be chewing up the skin. That's not what that implies, simply because I'm aligning my hand speed to my voltage. What I'm doing is I'm picking a voltage that's comfortable for my technique, my skill set, and the style at hand in correspondence to the gear that I am using. Let's just say I went to the opposite side of the spectrum. Let's say if I dropped it down to 4.5 volts. Now, I'm not saying that we can't line at 4.5 volts, but what I'm saying is why would we want to? The workflow dramatically changes. So here you're going to see that I have to let the needle catch into the skin, and then I'm probably going to be covering around this much skin per millisecond, as you can see, which is going to take me significantly longer. At this point though, when I'm moving this slow, I cannot tell if I am oversaturating, if I am undersaturating, or if I'm causing trauma to the skin just because this feels a little bit unnatural. Moving this slow doesn't feel right, but if I speed it up, you're gonna see that the ink doesn't catch. So what do? Oftentimes when we start off as beginners, we find ourselves in these weird predicaments where our lines aren't coming out the way that we want them to, and it's almost guaranteed that the hand speed to voltage is not aligned. Let's say if I pick this up to 5.5 volts, you can hear the audible difference in output, and you can hear that it's a little bit more power, but that's still not where I would like to be for lining, especially with a larger needle grouping. So I'm gonna go ahead and move one more up, and that feels about right. So to me, this is about the range that I wanna be working with. This is what you have to do. You have to fill out the range. And again, I talk about sound and voltage more in my Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. I go in depth there, and it is available on my Amazon author page and Barnes & Noble as well. Just head on over to Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com, type in Daniel Yuck, and then you will see the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook pop right on up. So you can see though, finding and fine-tuning and finding out where I'm comfortable with the voltage range is everything. You can see that I'm starting to yield clean, solid, consistent, saturated lines. I can do this without moving too fast or going too slow, all because I'm taking time to consider the design that I am using, the design that I am tattooing, the machine that I am using, and the results that I want. This one went off right here. Go right over it, just hovering the needle there. And we get clean, solid, consistent, saturated lines. I would essentially repeat this throughout the entire tattoo. So for example, if I go over here, you're gonna see that nothing changes but the area that I am tattooing. And I think that this is how we know what voltage is right for us. It really just depends on the style of tattoos that you're gonna be doing. So for example, if you're gonna be doing traditional, then you're probably not gonna wanna be running at a higher voltage when it comes to packing. You're probably gonna wanna stay at around 6 volts, maybe 5.5, depending on the machine that you are using. If you're gonna be doing mandalas, then you're probably gonna wanna be lining at around 6 to 7 volts, maybe doing dot work at 5. You get the idea. Keep in mind, it's important that none of these rules or none of these fundamentals that I'm sharing with you are definitive. There are artists out there that use 3-round liners and shade at 8 volts with their machine, and that's fine because their technique and application calls for it. So as you can see right here, still lining at 6 volts. And since I locked into my design, my gear, and my results, I'm able to just simply apply the tattoo with confidence. If you're still having trouble figuring out what voltage is right for you, try to adopt this thought process. It really is going to be determined by the results that you want, the style of tattoos that you're going to be doing, and pretty much the gear that you're going to be using. Those are like the bare bone basics. Again, I can't exhaust this. I do talk about this in depth within the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook, which is now available on my Amazon author page and Barnes & Noble's. Head on over, type in the Fundamental Tattoo Handbook or Daniel Yuck, and you will see this book and many more pop right on up. Let me demonstrate. Right here, I have a Mass Pro standard 7-round liner, and it's going to be the same rule of thumb. So I'm going to listen to my machine and my needle, and that already sounds nice and quiet. It doesn't sound too aggressive at all. What I'm going to do is I'm going to apply a little bit of ointment to the area that I'm going to be tattooing. And since I know that I'm going to want a clean, solid, consistent, saturated line, I'm typically going to stay at around 6.5 volts, the same voltage range that I was using with the round shader. However, what changes is my speed. Since I'm using my hand speed, since I'm using a smaller needle grouping, I'm going to move a little bit faster because I don't need 14 needles to hit together to make a unified line. I need 7, which is much easier to do. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge my A point to B point. Again, I go over this in my Fundamental Tattoo Handbook. And then I'm gonna start and then bring my line around. But you can see that I'm moving faster than I did with the 14 round liner. I'm sorry, round shader. I'm using a 7 round liner now, which allows me to move faster. Again, less needles means easier to open the skin. There you go. Let me dab away. Let me put some ointment on so you can see the true results here. But that's the idea. So you would apply this logic to pretty much anything that you are doing. So if you're going to be packing, then obviously you're going to want to pick a needle size for the design at hand, and you're going to want to pick a comfortable voltage that allows you to deposit either the black or colored ink in a manner that's clean, solid, consistent, saturated without overworking. So I'll end this video with this right here. Knowing what voltage is right for you isn't something that you're gonna know within your first day, first week, maybe even first few months. It's something that you're going to work into. You're going to make the mistakes. There's no way around the progress but through it. So when you're first starting out, don't be so focused on trying to find a definitive voltage. Try to start off at a lower voltage and feel what too slow is, and then start working your way up to what too much voltage is, and then that way you're going to be able to find a comfortable medium. And that's the takeaway from this video. That will be it for this one. Voltage is super important. The answer to knowing which one is right for you is just through trial and error. There is no definitive answer, unfortunately. However, I am here to help. If you have any questions at all, if you're struggling, let me know your scenario and I'll see if I can point you in a voltage direction that'll better suit your wants and needs. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to drop a comment down below. I'll also do my best to assist in the best possible direction. If you found this video helpful, consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to my channel, as I'll be bringing more videos like this for you all. With that being said, thank you for your time and I appreciate you watching. I hope you have a great day today.